So this was the 20th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. But this is why this is historic and important from the point of view of India and cultural diplomacy. Ethiopian Gefata, which is a cultural festival of Ethiopia, which has found place in the ICH list. So the domestic or the state or the national governments have to identify in their own countries those traditions that could be nominated for the UNESCO's recognition. The decision is taken by this intergovernmental committee. So since 2008, Indian elements have been given recognition in the list. Every diya tells a story of hope over despair, of light over darkness, and values over the time. So in December 2025, these stories shared in our Deepavali festival have been recognized by UNESCO in its prestigious intangible cultural heritage list. So hello everyone. I welcome you all in the Vision IS weekly series of current affairs discussion, where I will be taking this topic of the recent inclusion of Deepavali in the UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list from UPSC point of view. So let's begin. So what is so historic about the recent decision that has been taken place by UNESCO in India, in New Delhi, to include Deepavali in its prestigious intangible cultural heritage list? So firstly, the meeting that happened, which took this decision, as I told you, happened in India at New Delhi in the Red Fort. And this is the first occasion of its kind where this meeting or decision was taken in India. So this was the 20th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, which has taken this decision to include Deepavali in the ICH list. Apart from Deepavali, there have also been other living traditions which have been included in the list, which we will be looking in a short while. But this is why this is historic and important from the point of view of India and cultural diplomacy. Secondly, with the inclusion of Deepavali in the ICH list, now the cultural elements which have been placed in the UNESCO's ICH list is 16. So with the inclusion of Deepavali from India, there have been 16 cultural elements now which you can find in the ICH list. Another important development that happened was that during this meeting, the session was chaired by the permanent ambassador to UNESCO from Indian side, Vishal V. Sharma. So these are some of the historic important milestones which we saw this year in the month of December. As I told you, apart from Deepavali, there have been other cultural elements or living traditions which has found place in the prestigious ICH list of UNESCO. And what are they? First, there has been a recognition given to Italian cuisine from Italy, Swiss alpine yodeling, which is again a vocal tradition from Switzerland, Ethiopian Gefata, which is a cultural festival of Ethiopia, which has found place in the ICH list, and Bangladeshi Tangail Sari has also been given representation by UNESCO in the Intangible Cultural Heritage List. So from UPSC prelims point of view, this Tangail Sari is also important. And why? So this Tangail Sari is also seen in Bengal, and it's also known as Tangali saris. So in 2024, recently, Tangali saris from Bengal have been given GI tag status. So this is again important point, which you all can note from prelims point of view, right? So in 2024, Tangali saris have been given GI tag from Bengal. Now, what is so unique in these saris? Now, they have this traditional jamdani weaving, which makes it unique, right? Apart from this, it has, leaf motifs, lotus motifs, which are part of this sari weaving culture or tradition. So this is another point which you all can note. Now, before we dwell into the facts related to UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list and how this list is being decided, who decides which tradition is to be included in it, before that, let's understand why these living heritage or traditions are important and actually what are they. So, a rich living heritage or tradition generally encompasses your oral traditions like folk stories, narratives, some poems, etc. You have performing tradition like your festivals, customs, right? You have knowledge systems like yoga, some philosophy related to universe, world. You have traditional crafts like weaving, utensil making, etc., that have passed on from generations to generations. So, this is what is a living heritage all about. Now, all these living heritage and traditions have been given due importance by UNESCO by including it in the UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list, right? So, the prime purpose of UNESCO to include them is to give importance to the living heritage and traditions that are present from generations from different parts of the country, right? Now let's understand the genesis or origin of this UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list. So there is this convention for the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage adopted by the UNESCO's General Conference in 2003. So this convention was adopted by the UNESCO General Conference by the name of Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage in 2003, right? It was ratified in 2006 by 30 members, and since then it has been in force, right? Now, one thing which we have understood is that the purpose of the Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage is to safeguard the living traditions. But what is intangible? Intangible is what we cannot touch physically, but what we can see. So we feel the experiences, we feel or listen to the stories, we see the performance. So this is all is intangible cultural heritage, right? So the aim of this convention is to safeguard all these intangible cultural heritage found or felt and experienced by the people across the globe, right? So this is what you need to know. Now, how does this convention functions, right? So it functions at two levels, one at the national level and the second at the international level. So what is the role of the national or the state or the domestic governments, whoever signs or ratifies this convention? So the domestic or the state or the national governments have to identify in their own countries those traditions that could be nominated for the UNESCO's recognition, right? Secondly, they have to also adopt appropriate policies to preserve living heritage, right? Thirdly, they have to also promote education and awareness among the people with respect to those living traditions. At the international level, at the global level, the governments as well as UNESCO promotes cooperation and exchange of knowledge information with respect to different cultural traditions, with respect to undertaking joint initiatives, with respect to establishing a mechanism of assistance to the parties which have signed this convention. So it functions at two levels, right? Next thing which you need to know is that what is this list of intangible cultural heritage, right? Which is part of UNESCO's convention. So this list system of UNESCO to preserve living heritage was adopted in 2008. Before that, these lists were not part of the convention, right? So after 2008 or since 2008, UNESCO is been recognizing the cultural elements found in different parts of the world in the list. Now, this list or lists is published by the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, the members of which are elected by the state parties in a meeting in a general assembly. So what is this Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage? So basically, the main function of this committee is to oversee the implementation of including as well as preserving and recognizing the cultural elements and living traditions across the globe. So this is the primary or the main body which oversees the implementation, which conducts meetings, right? And finally, it takes the decision to include the traditions in the lists, right? So every year, usually the meeting happens. So the meetings happens every year where the decision is taken by this intergovernmental committee, right? Now, can there be meetings, in a year more than one? Yes. If the state parties of more than 2/3 request to have an extraordinary meeting, then the special meeting can happen. Usually the meetings happen every year. So an extraordinary or special meeting could happen if more than 2/3 member requests the UNESCO to conduct this meeting, right? So this is what first you need to know about this committee. Now, as I mentioned that there is this list system that is adopted by the UNESCO since 2008. So there are 3 lists which this convention maintains or which this committee maintains. And what are those 3 lists? First, representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Second, list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding. And third, register of good safeguarding practices. All these 3 lists are maintained by this UNESCO's convention or the Intergovernmental Committee. Now, what is the purpose of the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity? So it simply safeguards and includes those cultural elements that are important culturally and are also important to be safeguarded throughout the generations. Second, the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding are including those cultural elements that the state parties consider very urgent and immediate measures have to be taken to safeguard those traditions, right? Now, what is this register of good safeguarding practices? So these list mainly recognizes the successful safeguarding experiences and examples of those practices and knowledge, again, that's important for the future generations. So if there is a question asked by UPSC that it is the only list that is part of UNESCO's Convention on Safeguarding Intangible Cultural Heritage, no. So there are these 3 lists, right? So this is again very important. Now coming to understand that there are obviously, if UNESCO is including any cultural heritage or living heritage in the list or recognizing the importance, obviously there has to be some fund to maintain and share the knowledge, experiences, and take actions to preserve that living heritage. So there is this fund by the name of Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund, again part of this convention, where it has 2 kinds of contributions. So whichever state party or member has ratified this convention are funding this fund. So one is obligatory contribution, which is to be done by all the state parties or members who have ratified this convention, corresponding to 1% of their contribution to the regular budget of UNESCO. And then there is voluntary contribution, where the state parties could or other institutions or public or private organizations and even individuals can fund voluntarily to safeguard intangible elements, right? So this is with respect to understanding of certain facts with respect to UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage framework or mechanism. Now let's understand from Indian perspective and UPSC examination point of view, which all elements have already been inscribed in the representative list of UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage. So as I told you, but with the inclusion of Deepavali, there are 16 elements now, right? India ratified this convention in 2005, and the first traditional element that found a place, in the UNESCO's intangible cultural heritage list comes from 2008 onwards, right? So since 2008, Indian elements have been given recognition in the list. So let's see what are the elements which have found place in the representative list. So in 2008, 3 traditions have been included, one being Ram Leela, other being Vedic chanting, and third being Kudiyattam, which is a Kerala Sanskrit theatre. Ram Leela is again in the dimension of performing art, Vedic chanting, oral tradition, and Kudiyattam is an example of, again, performing art. In 2009, Ramman, a religious festival and ritual theatre tradition from Garhwal Himalayas, found place in the UNESCO's representative list, right? In 2010, Mudiyettu, which is again a theatrical dance performance from Kerala, which found place in the list. Then there is this Kalbelia, again in 2010, has been included in the list. It is a kind of folk dance and song sung by Kalbelia community of Rajasthan. There is another dance performing tradition which has found place from Bihar, included in the representative list, and that is Chau, right? So these are some of the traditions. In 2012, Buddhist chanting tradition of Ladakh was included. In 2013, Sankirtan, which is again ritual singing and theatrical performance of Manipur, which has found place. In 2014, brass and copper craft of utensil making by Thateras community of Punjab have been given place in the representative list of UNESCO. In 2016, yoga and Navroz were included. 2017 Kumbh Mela has been given representation. 2021 Durga Puja has been included. 2023 Garba dance of Gujarat found place in the list, and the most recent addition being Deepavali. So as we see the list of these 16 items, mainly your performing traditions have found place in the UNESCO's representative list of intangible cultural heritage, right? Now, why does it matter for any element, specifically from the perspective of India, to be included in this prestigious list? First, obviously, the global image or the global recognition that is being provided by including any traditional element from Indian side, right? Second, it also reinforces India's role and leadership and the cultural heritage which it has, across the globe, right? It also ensures that in future, the generations would be able to recognize these elements even more. So that's why inclusion or safeguarding or preservation of cultural elements or living traditions becomes very, very important from the perspective of the country like India, which is rich in culture, which has so much of population, which has so much of, tourism potential that can attract many people to visit India for such elements, right? Next understanding which you all need to have is that as we have discussed that what is a living heritage. So mainly living heritage or safeguarding intangible cultural heritage includes those elements which are part of oral tradition, performing arts, social practices, nature knowledge, traditional crafts. Deepavali has been inscribed in the list from the category of social practices, rituals, and festive events. Now, this recognition of Deepavali from the perspective of that it is a social practice, it is a ritual, it is a festive event, adds the multi-dimensional, holistic, rich culture which the festival of Deepavali encompasses. And how? So mainly, Diwali is a multi-religious celebration. It's not only a Hindu festival, but it is embraced by many other religious communities like Jains, Sikhs, Buddhists in India, while the Diwali celebrations, go. Second, we have also seen that the festival's intergenerational knowledge or transmission, the values and the customs which it has, you know, is also very unique. And you must be wondering that why, and you must have experienced also, because whenever the festival of lights, that is the Deepavali, is approaching, there are many other festivities and customs that we all, come together as a family, as friends. Like, for example, we gift our near and dear ones, right? The markets are flooded with goods. You have, the sweets being made, right? So this is what it has, right? So the elders also teach us that one has to donate things, right? We start cleaning, homes, right? So all these values or transmission that comes along with the festivities is also very unique in the festival of Diwali. Then even the communities and organizations take efforts to celebrate Diwali in a grand way. There are festivals conducted, there are fests being organized, Diwali fest, etc., by college, school, right? Even in schools, the teachers take a very this effort for the students to understand what the festival of light means, right? So all those activities take place, right, which makes the students learn about our rich cultural heritage, right? Another dimension which is important from economic and cultural point of view, that is part of the festival of lights, that is Diwali, that along with the culture and the traditions that are transmitted through Diwali, we also see the economic potential or the creative impact, and how there are local artisans or the industries which gets a boost during the festivities of Diwali, like diyas, like potters, like small shops. They decorate, they come up with new things, and that adds to the local economy, right? Next, what do we see? We also see certain auxiliary or ancillary industries growing. Not only the festival of lights or the diyas which are part of the markets, but also cuisines, the food industry also grows, right? So this whole ecosystem participates whenever the festival of lights or Diwali is around, right? Apart from this, the creative impact, the painters, the flower shops, they also come up around the homes or nearby markets, which again boost the economy. So all of this and together creates this festival of lights being very holistic and encompassing, right? So that is what is the heart of Diwali as a festival, right? It's not a religious festival. It strengthens the community ties, right? It helps in social integration. It helps in being very inclusive, because the age group of ranging from your grandfather to your mom and dad to the children to the college goers, they all participate in this festivity, right? What values does it provide us? It provides us to be kind, it provides us to be compassionate, it tells us to donate things. Old, values or old things are discarded, right? Negativity is discarded. So you also see many people giving away or donating their old clothes during this festival, right? There is a, hope of renewal, new beginning whenever this Diwali comes, right? So this is what the cultural identity is expressed and manifested through the festival of light, right? So this has made UNESCO representing Deepavali in its prestigious list of intangible cultural heritage. So it not only holds importance in India with respect to the values it transmits, with respect to the experiences or the ties it maintains, but it also has given this festival a timeless and global presence, right? So this is what we all need to understand when it comes to this topic from prelims and even, mains point of view. There can be a question on cultural diplomacy and ethics, right? You can give an example of the recent inclusion of UNESCO's, UNESCO in the list of intangible cultural heritage list of including Diwali, which is a festival of lights. And even not this Diwali or festival of lights is celebrated in across the world, right? Recently, we have also seen Donald Trump celebrating Diwali. So we have a lot of, presidents and prime ministers of different parts of the countries, enjoying this festival and taking part in the festivities. So with this, we end this discussion. I hope it would have given you enough points to cover in UPSC examination, right? So all the best, guys. Have a nice day.